Did they ask you, Matt, if there was any theist, whether that you would like to meet again or you enjoyed being with on stage?
No, we talked a little bit about, whether or not I wanted to debate Craig or anybody else. And I was pointing out that I don't choose my debates based on the person. I will disqualify some people, just, like Vegan Gaines is a knife wielding psychopath who's flat out threatened people for disagreeing with him on veganism. So I'm never going to have a conversation with him. I debated David Wood, who is a psychopath, but David's convinced that God wants him to view human beings as if they have intrinsic value. And so he won't actually hurt me, whereas Vegan Gaines might. And so David is a psychopath who's against violence because of God, and Vegan Gaines is I don't know, I'm not going to diagnose him. David has been diagnosed. I don't know about Vegan Gaines. So I don't sit around going, ooh, here's a theist I'd love to engage with. Or in the atheist realm, it's Dennett, Sean Carroll. I've been really fortunate. I mean, I'd like to spend more time with Neil deGrasse Tyson, but I mean, we've only met and talked a couple times. And I, the very first time I met Neil, I apologized to him. We had a little debate. I won. So who's going to beat that story? That Neil deGrasse Tyson's sitting here poking me in the shoulder, and he's a big dude to the point where I think I'm going to get a bruise. And then when it's all over, he's like, yep, you can tell your friends I was a douche. I was like, all right.
Hey, Matt, I'm curious. I have a psychology background, so I'm very sensitive to people who identify as some form of theism, but clearly they seem to be someone who could potentially be threatening to themselves and or others if they didn't have this belief system. And so I don't engage them. And I was just wondering how you feel about that as someone who is, promoting atheism and atheist, arguments for reasons to not believe and all that. When you encounter someone like that, what approach do you take, if any, when dealing with them? When you have someone that says, the whole reason, if there's no God, then there's no objective morality. And if there's no objective morality, everyone might as well be a nihilist. And I'd probably be a nihilist if I didn't believe in God. I mean, what do you do with that person?
Yeah, with something like that, that doesn't necessarily mean they're a danger. And so my view generally is that the truth is always a defense against charges of libel. And it's not that I'm just like blameless or anything. Now, with somebody like David Wood, I asked him during the debate, if you did not believe in God, would you want to kill people? And he's like, yeah. I mean, he kind of downplayed it because what he was saying is, yes, I might want to, but I might also find other reasons not to, like the social consequences of going to jail, et cetera, like that. But he was sitting 5 feet away from me with James in between us and said something along the lines of, yeah, I'd want to at least want to punch people and hurt them. And when people have called in with claims like that, when I've said, if you stop believing in God, are you going to run around raping and killing people? And the people who say yes, then I always tell them, I would like for you to keep believing. I don't have any more interest in changing your mind. But I also point out that I largely don't believe them when they say that I think that is a bit of hyperbole on their part to show just how confident they are that they're right, that they would like it supports their argument.
I hope it is.
I hope it is too.
But I don't take it for granted that it will be. I hope for the best, but I assume the worst.
But let's say for a second, Bryce, that I run across somebody, and two people. One of them tells me that if they stop believing in God, they're going to go hurt people. The other one doesn't tell me that, but thinks the same thing. If I manage to convince both of them to the point where they no longer believe in God, and I've done nothing but present arguments and evidence and truth, I don't think that I'm responsible for the actions they take afterwards. And because there's no way for me to tell, and they're still going to be the ones who are responsible for whatever action they take. I will be miserable if one of them goes home.
I was just going to say, I would still feel bad about it though.
Yeah, no, but I feel bad about all that. Like today they released the body cam footage of the police officers shooting think it's Lyndon something. He's a 13-year-old autistic kid. His mom called the cops because he was having a little hissy fit, and the cops fired 11 times, and they didn't kill him, but he was just walking away. And then after he falls to the ground, they're like, show us your hands. Now, I don't think that cop views himself as a murderer or somebody who's assaulted somebody or a danger. And yet he absolutely was a danger. And I don't think actually one of the first comments was that his mom shouldn't have called the police because she should have known this shit was going to happen. And I was like, no, that's not how any of this works. Because if there's a limit to this causal chain that I think is going to stop at the individual who's responsible for their actions. Otherwise, if I'm to blame that somebody, after discovering that they didn't have good reason to believe in God, goes on a murderous rampage, why do we stop with me as responsible? I mean, if I would stop with that person as responsible, but if you want to extend it to me, then why don't we extend it to the person who convinced me, or my parents for giving birth to me, or, you know.
Can I push back on that a little bit, and not because I believe it, but
it's curious. A shitty argument. It's a shitty argument on my part, because I'm basically making a slippery slope thing. So yes, by all means, push back.
And I was going to say, you know, I don't know, and this could just be my ignorance. I don't recall that Adolf Hitler ever actually killed anyone himself, and Charles Manson, I believe, never actually killed anyone.
So yes. But there's a difference between the two of those. I don't think Manson should be in jail for murder. Well, granted, he's dead now, but I said this while he was alive. I do not think that Manson should have been in jail for murder. I think perhaps he should have been in jail for other things. But Hitler was an official who was directing actions. Mm-hmm. Manson was not. Right. I mean, Hitler was like he was the elected chancellor. Mm-hmm. And so now
it's the same as a military commander ordering somebody to do something. Yeah, no, I totally get that. It was kind of a
little bit difference between them and Manson. And I actually argued that Manson should have been released from jail solely based on the legal findings, but that I was glad he was still in jail because
he should have been committed to a psychiatric institution because he was clearly mentally unstable. And you could see that. I mean, I could see that when I knew nothing about psychology. Now, having learned a little bit about it, clearly that was the case. And it's just a shame that, our first instinct is to put him in jail. You know, we don't deal with psychological issues in the way that we should, in my opinion. But.
Yeah, and as somebody keen on the law, I think Roe v. Wade was wrongly decided. I think privacy was a bad foundation for Roe v. Wade, and it was set to crumble no matter what. And however, I'm glad it exists, and I'm glad that there's a right to choose now, and I'd like to protect it however we end up going about it. The same thing is true for me with regard to Manson. I don't think he should have been in jail for murder. Maybe felony murder, which is something different, but that didn't exist at the time that they put him in jail. I wish he would have been, in a facility to protect him from himself and everybody else from him. And so, yeah, it's where the technicality of the system got it wrong, but with the right results, or a better result, not the right result, but a better result. It was better for Manson to have been locked up all those years than to have let him run around free.